So
is can technology, whether we're talking about, technology, first of all, let's define what that is, right? Technology can be a hammer. Technology is any device that humanity uses to assist ourselves, and we've been using technology for millennia now. But as Hakeem was saying, we're more recently discussing specifically digital technology, digital means of communication, digital means of exchange, all these sorts of things. And there seems to be somewhat of a divide in our broader freedom, truth communities, solutions-based communities around the world, where some folks are very tech-phobic and don't want anything to do with digital technology. Others are very much embracing various forms of digital technology, whether that's cryptocurrency, encrypted messaging platforms, Web3 stuff. And so we do think it's important to have that discussion. Later on today, we're going to be having a panel at the very end of today with Hakeem and a few other of our speakers, and we're going to get into the nuances of blockchain, artificial intelligence, digital identities, cryptocurrency. We're going to have that discussion at the end of today, so we'll hope you'll stick around for that. But we really, I guess the kind of purpose of today, if there's any specific purpose, is to encourage everybody listening at home and watching to ask questions about how we're going to relate to technology, whether we're talking about the blockchain technology or we're talking about all the lovely things we're going to hear from these panelists on the first panel. How are we going to relate to it? Each of us are going to have different lines of what we're willing to do and what systems we're willing to interact with. I'll say for myself personally, I don't like interacting with facial recognition systems, right? I've even given thought to maybe not traveling in the next couple of years once those systems become more widespread. Like in the United States, they're starting to test them out, and you won't be able to fly very soon without submitting to some form of facial recognition. So for me, that's kind of a line in the sand, right? And part of today's conversation, in addition to exposing you to new forms of technologies that we think can really build the new world we're trying to do, is also just to have that dialogue about where is our line, what systems and types of technology are we comfortable with, and what forms of technology maybe do we want to stay away from. And that's going to be different for each and every one of us. We're not here to tell you what to embrace and not to embrace. We just want to share a lot of the ideas and get you thinking. Start the panel? Yeah.
Sure, so if we can get everyone who's involved with the panel to join us on stage, go ahead and enter and let's get started. All right. Let's give a big round of applause to all of our panelists today. They come from all different parts of the United States, but we're brought together with our shared bond of wanting to do something important for humanity. And I've gotten to chat with all of them briefly, and it's really, really revolutionary, the things that they're working on. So I'm going to pass the mic to each one of y'all, and I want you guys to introduce yourself, and then also tell us what was it that keyed you in that something needed to be created. Was it something that you went through personally, maybe a trauma that you went through, that you saw that things could be done a better way, or maybe it was discussed for the current or modern way of doing things? So let's start with Rory.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Rory Turnbull. I'm from Laguna Beach, California. It's been this journey's been most of my life, really. I can't really ever remember a time in my life when I wasn't an anarchist and aware of a lot of the egregious, atrocities and the toxicity associated with our kind of modern society, and really led me down a path of searching, for my own health, for my community health, and, led me to agriculture and soil fertility and ecosystem science, and which really led me to permaculture, and met some of the most amazing people in the world, that essentially the Michael Jordans, if you will, for lack of a better term. And they all told me they spend 90% of their time trying to find money and trying to just get these projects off the ground, even though that they have the means and the knowledge, they don't have the resources and the tools. And so that's what I've dedicated my time to providing, is tools, knowledge, and systems that can support these farmers and also generate revenue for these types of projects.
Excellent. My name's George Wiseman. I grew up on a cattle ranch way back in the bush. We didn't even have a radio, no running water, no electricity, that sort of thing. I saddled up a horse at 4:30 in the morning. And when I left the ranch, because that was the thing, you go out into the world and see what's going on, and I learned about hot and cold running water and electricity, and I decided I liked that. So I decided I wouldn't be without it anymore in my life, and because on the ranch you fix everything yourself, I happen to have a very high mechanical IQ. So I became an inventor, and I focused on free energy and alternative energy research. So at that point, that kind of drove it then, just because that's the way I made my business. And I've been a self-employed inventor ever since I think it was 84, 86, something like that. And I started with fuel savers because, interestingly enough, back on the ranch, I just did things the way I thought they should be done. And I had a 1966 Ford pickup truck that got 36 miles to the gallon, which I didn't know wasn't supposed to be able to be done. So that was one of the first things I started teaching people how to do. And interestingly enough, I ended up writing a book about it. There's a whole story about not patenting and that. And by writing a book, I was able to help hundreds of thousands of people save a lot of fuel. And then it financed, the book financed the various other projects I was doing, and I evolved from there. That got me into Brown's gas, which is why I'm here today, and at 11:55 I'll be speaking on that, which led through various stages, first as a fuel saver, second as a torch fuel gas, and then my customers convinced me, there's a whole story behind that, on how to use it for therapeutic and health benefits. It took them 9 years for me to convince me to use the Brown's gas for my own health. And then once I did that, I was thoroughly convinced and have pretty much dedicated my life to making people healthy with this absolutely wonderful technology.
Thank you, George. My name is Indon Clark. My journey in life actually started with a near-death experience at 17. That's what kind of shifted my reality and view on the world. And awakening at a very early age, touching death, coming back, being rescued. And that really just gave me a sense that I was here for a reason, that it was my time. And since then, a lot of my life has just kind of unfolded and revealed what my purpose is along the way. In my 20s, my role in tech was actually focused on different alternative building styles and practices in the fields of sustainability. I originally went to school for solar energy technology and got into the industry, and then saw some of the plagues of the industry itself and some of the downsides of solar. And that kind of expanded my awareness to really want to understand systems at a greater scale. So then I started going the alternative education route, studying biotecture, other types of building sciences, other types of alternative energy as well. And my experience when I was 17, having my spleen removed, also got me, it made me very sober to the reality that I need to take care of my health at a very early age, that I couldn't keep living in the same way that I was living as a teenager. So alongside these building technologies, I've also been very interested in alternative healing devices as well. And my role, my largest role in my 20s was actually focusing on gray water and rainwater catchment for the state of Colorado. And for about 2 years, I worked in the regulation writing process as a stakeholder. And we were the last state to actually get gray water legalized in the US. And that was a big focus for me for a very long time, which was water sovereignty and getting access to water, and actually just being able to use water to grow the plants in our garden. And even just going down to the Capitol and doing that, being a stakeholder, was getting threatened in meetings and having big henchmen and stuff, try to intimidate my partner and I. And that was when I really realized that the state and the government really doesn't always have our best interest in mind. And so for me, I've just continued empowering myself to understand our lawful nature and to stand up against the legal tyrants and to do the right thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Don.
My name is Alexander, and I really got started at a young age at looking at systems. It's very easy for me to see the systems of people, of society in general, of technologies. That led me into pursuing psychology in school, and then from there jumped directly into business, built many different systems for business, automations, and years and years of doing that, I started to realize that there was a greater system that was falling apart. It was our society. It was our cities. And so I turned my attention and my ability to build systems and to have innovations into building communities. And so for the last about 10 years, I've been building a system called Allocate, which is 8 different arms that we're going to be speaking about, one of the arms today. And that is how to ensure that all of the components of community are successfully landed. There's a strong foundation so that communities have the ability to exit and build, right, and do it successfully. And so really my start started when I was a kid and seeing that there's things that need to be fixed and that somebody's got to do something about it. And I wasn't going to stand by and let it go any further.
Thank you. There's a lot of parallels. My name is Kat Donnelly, and I am also a systems thinker, systems engineer. And I started out pretty young, getting sick from my food. And I lived near experimental farms in Fresno, California, and didn't realize that this was making me sick. And at some point, I discovered that it was my food making me sick. And so I started my career doing lots of environmental work, recognizing that, you know, we were poisoning our lands, and did many, many things: transit, city planning, renewable energy, and then I turned to energy efficiency. And I thought, gosh, if we can't get people to change their behavior, none of these technologies matter, none of this really matters what we're doing. So I started studying behavior change as well. We came into, I think it's just divine. I don't know, I'm following the path that's being led to me. We came into this technology. Sundarajan's one of the inventors, and I recognized that we could use this technology to improve our food systems and to bring nutrient density back into our food and to grow our food with a lot less poison, you know, hopefully none. We're striving for none. So that's where I am today, and I'm super excited to be here. I feel blessed to have found this organization and what you all are doing, and thank you for all of that.
So my name is Sundarajan Mutialu. They've nicknamed me Sun, which is probably obvious since I, with 2 colleagues, invented Sun, which hopefully you'll come and see later. I was born in the Fiji Islands. I'm Indian, and my dad traveled getting his medical degrees through the South Seas and up through Vancouver, and I ended up in the Bay Area, and Berkeley, as a lot of people call it. And my interest was music, and it still is. And it took me a long time to realize it's not so much the initial music of a guitar, which I do play, and I'm a producer and things like that, but it was the frequencies, the regards that I'm attracted to all the frequencies, and that's the frequencies in Mother Nature. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But my dad was in medicine, my uncles were all in traditional medicine, and for a long time I tried to figure out things like religion and where should I be and enlightenment and all that. And I think it was a walk by myself in Yosemite that finally I realized that the master and the teacher and the student is Mother Nature. And that is where I belong, and that's where I should be. So with all the work that I did, I'm a plasma physicist, a mechanical engineer, but really all that education, it was helpful, but when I realized that all we have to do is emulate Mother Nature, copy what she does, and figure out a way to bring that in, it would be very important. So when we went and started looking at how food is being grown, and we tried very hard with Big Ag to get in, but it was really tough. And the Cargills and the large, they really turned their backs on us. So the only really receptive audience was cannabis, all the cannabis growers, the medical cannabis guys. You know, they had the money, and so they were the early adopters. But the biggest problem was when we walked into any indoor places to grow, was there was no sunlight. And so when you only have very little amount of the sunlight, you have to coax the plant to grow. Since the plant is so much more intelligent than we are as humans, if you just do it based on genetics, it just does what it can to live. So yes, a lot of people try to do plant steering and do all these things to get you. But I realized then, we're poisoning our food system. we're poisoning, and so what we thought, and we had lots of opportunities to license and sell this off when we didn't. Instead, we're in groups like this trying to figure out ways to help children get good, healthy food. How to get plants and how to help the trees and get that. That's our goal. It isn't to sell a tech. It's to be able to do that, and the end product is what we deliver, and it's the plant. And so we're here, or I am here as well, to really represent the plant, because it needs a voice. It's one of the nearest places where we get our energy to live, and that's why I'm here.
Wow, what an amazing group in front of us today. Give her up. Give it up. So we'll keep the microphone over there, and I'm going to ask you this next question. Some of you in the audience may know about open source technology, which is technology, typically a program where you can see all of the lines of code in it, you can study, you can analyze it, and in most cases, you could redistribute it. And that ties in directly to decentralizing it. Maybe the original developers of that program, something happens to them, or the project gets corrupted. Well, the community behind it can take it and shift it somewhere else, copy it, make a new project, and spin it off. Now, not everyone here on stage is having a digital technology project, but I wanted to ask, how do you think, or how are you already embracing the concepts of open source technology and decentralization? And we can start with Sun and Kat again. Or maybe...
That's not my area of expertise.
I think everything should be open source. Unfortunately, we're in an economic situation. We're in a lot of systems that are at play. It's going to take a whole lot of inertia to do that. When we first came out with our tech, that's what we wanted to do. But then, you know, there's some very big companies, start with M and S, who really want to bury us, right? They want to buy it and do their own specific kind of plants and tie it to their own fertilizer and do all that. So the way we approach it is we don't want to sell the golden goose. We want to share the eggs, at least for the short term, so that we can at least control it. So rather than going to these large commercial grows that we know are doing really bad chemical, which then, you know, plants are bioremedial and you're getting it in your own system. They don't tell you about it. They're not being tested in that sense. So our goal is to, yes, make it through either sub-licensing, open it up and have it in different places, looking for strategic partners that would do that with us. So we're handling it a little bit different only because we don't want it to get away from ourselves, right? That's the biggest problem. It isn't so much that we're greedy and we go, oh, you know, we only have it. It's because right now the trust factor in the large ag companies that really should embrace it and nobody that we really trust yet. We haven't found it.
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree that open source should be more readily accepted, especially in technologies, right? With something that we do in our company is ensuring that as we're supporting communities, that they also understand all of the things that we're including in it. There's all the technologies we're going to speak about later today that help their community to be successful. We want to make sure that they understand that and then they can use that and access all of these pieces too. We believe in transparency, of course, too. So as we build our business, we're happily having transparency in all of our books, in all of our processes, in all of our teams too. This is a building together, and I think that that's what we're all here for, is how can we build this together and move together into the future? Well, we can't do that if there's a lot of black books and hidden curtains and things of that nature. So finding ways, of course, to protect yourself and ensure that you have the ability to make a stance in a market, and that, you know, you're not going to have 30 people from countries where they can afford to do things cheaply and use a lot of plastics, and they're going to come in and edge you out. And so, of course, having some restraint in those ways. But at the end of the day, if it's the people that you're working with and the people that are wanting to improve upon these things, that's how innovation happens, right? Is the ability to access what's already there. And so in this way, let's work on it in a collaborative way, is my opinion on that.
And just to piggyback on that, I think good leaders listen to their users. great leaders listen to the people that are in their industry. And so really, I think it's really important that we kind of bring the wall down in the industries or the technologies that we work with, so we can actually get feedback not just from the users, but feedback from the people that are the inventors, the engineers, the people that are developing these projects. So that way, you know, if the end goal is that we're all desiring to create the same thing at the end of the day, then why don't we create the best version of a technology, rather than being in a competition-based mindset and having these subtle forms of tribalism where we get very territorial. Why don't we kind of reach a place of understanding that at the end of the day, we're all humanity, we're all here on Spaceship Earth, and we're all taking the journey together. So why don't we get comfortable, make this a beautiful place, and do it together? There's no reason that we should be fighting for the resources and scraps, and I think it's just inevitable that we'll reach that point. So let's get to it.
I alluded to what happened with myself earlier in my introduction, where I had the fuel-saving technology and then I wrote a book about it. One of the reasons I wrote the book is because I was approached by a late-night television station that those infomercials that say, and wait, you do this, and anyway, they wanted to sell the fuel saver with this late night television thing, and they made a nice commercial for it and everything, and then their producer said, no, we're not going to go forward with it because it's too simple. Anyone can go to a hardware store, get $15 worth of parts, hour hood up to hood down, and have it, and bypass us. So they nixed the whole project. And so another reason is I went to the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho, and I did some research on the patents of fuel savers, and I only went back to 1975, and during that, just that time, there were over, and it was in the 80s that I did that, mid 80s, there were I found over 5,000 fuel saver patents, not one of which was on the market. So patenting wasn't a really good idea with the technologies that I was working with. They were being bought out by oil companies and governments and suppressed in various ways. So I decided I'd write a book, a set of instructions, which then I listened to my customers and improved upon it as I was answering questions. And so that was the third edition carburetor enhancer manual is what it ended up being. They don't make carburetors anymore, but I have other fuel savers that I've written books to help people with fuel injected engines and stuff as well. The idea being is that I could write it. I have protection for copyright, and then away I go. I had to do some little additional protections when I went to ebooks back in the late 1990s. Because people would just copy them and send them out to their friends. In fact, even in printing time, people would take a book to work and make 50 copies and spread it all to their friends. So that didn't give me the little $4 profit that I needed to kind of keep my business going. So it is important that a person builds in some way to make sure that you get value for the work that you put out. But on the other hand, it's absolutely essential to spread the information as far and wide, bypassing the suppression systems that are out there. And I assure you, there are some serious suppression systems. I could tell you stories that have happened to me that would raise the hairs on the back of your neck right here, I absolutely guarantee. So, and currently with the Brown's gas, for example, I was going to essentially free source the information, but because of the way the internet is, that would have meant, and this was explained to me quite explicitly, that would everybody be out there fighting for the same keywords online, and the price would go of the keywords would go high, and the value of the products would go to the lowest common denominator. In other words, nobody would be able to make any money in it anymore. Just various things like that. So we had to start controlling the narrative so that we're reconfiguring our business to do that. But we want this spread worldwide. We want Brown's gas in every home, at least hydrogen, but Brown's gas in every home. So we are working on systems that allow us to control the narrative and allow everybody to be collaborative rather than competitive. So that we're actually working on that. So that was an excellent question. Thank you.
Agree with everyone. Everything should be open source, and I really think that's what you just brought up is probably the crux of what it all comes down to, is how do we protect this sacred, this is sacred knowledge, this is sacred technology that's for everyone, and it needs to be for everyone, and so, you know, how do we open source it in a way that's accessible to everyone, but also can't be usurped and taken and put on a shelf, and, you know, navigating those early days of, you know, getting enough financial stability to, you know, put a protection in place to where you can open source it and still, you know, have the infrastructure in place. And that's something I explore a lot with my business and really look forward to, you know, collaborating with people on. And I personally take a lot of inspiration from the independent music industry and how artists are finding ways to essentially give their music out for free, but also get paid for it, and, you know, have kind of offer-based models, and people are exploring all types of different economic alternatives. So I think it's the future.
Thank you, Rory. Hey, so we're going to hear from Sun too, but I just want to tell the, make your answers 2 minutes or less for this next question, please.
So I should mention this, and I agree with Rory. Some inequalities that happen in the music industries I've been working on as well to try to do that. But there's an elephant in the room with regards to doing open source too, at least from our perspective. Food should be accessible to everybody. And it's the people that are in the challenged areas, it's indigenous people. Actually, they can do a better job of growing on their own and than us modern and civilized people. But our economics and our systems here don't really allow us often to make it open source to be able to do that, because we have large, big ag, big corps that use these sort of normalizing systems of making it easy and fast, that people don't get to that good food to be healthy. So a challenge also, and I welcome this to anybody in the audience, if there's a way where we can make it open source to actually feed the hungry, feed the people who are sick, and feed people who can't get high quality, better than organic food, because food is medicine. If we can do that, boy, we should be able to open source everything, right? That's my thought.
Thank you. Thank you, Sun. So my next question is a really interesting one. Now, everyone who's sitting on stage, their technologies could all be used in the domain of growing plants, whether it's regenerative soil, putting bubbling brown gas in the water you're growing it with, having natural structures that aren't leaking the poisons from cement outside, and of course using the natural characteristics of sunlight. And because all of these technologies can be used together, there's something that I've been paying attention to called stacking these technologies. And I'm interested in hearing, not just in your project, but what technologies are you excited to stack on top of your technology? So maybe we can start with, we can start in the middle. Go ahead.
Boy, you really hit the nail on the head with that one. Are you giving our presentation away over there?
Oops.
He knows. We're in the same house. He's trying to give the little seed. So that's actually a huge part of what it is that we do, is finding ways that we can integrate different technologies together and stack them together, because there's no one size fits all, right? And especially when you get into different areas, different regions, different climates, different needs for communities, whatever it may be, you've got to find innovative solutions. And that's actually where a lot of communities hit a wall, is that they maybe don't have access to these solutions, or they haven't thought of things in that way. And as I said in my intro, for myself, seeing systems is very easy. I can look at a problem and say, oh, okay, well, we could just do this, and we can automate here, and you know, bring this technology to do this. So a huge advocate for stacking those technologies, and that's where it comes down to collaboration at the end of the day, as we were just talking about in the last piece, is if everybody's trying to compete to edge each other out, or let me get this dollar, or how there's only so much money to go around for these things, can we not just collaborate in a way that yes, maybe if there's 10 people at the table, maybe everybody is making a little bit less in that way, but really, is that the agenda at the end of the day? If it is, you might be at the wrong conference. But I think that we're all here to try and work with each other to go forward with that. So it comes down to communication at the end of the day, folks. It's how do we find each other in the open world? We're in the age of the internet, right? How do we then from there ensure that everybody has a voice at the table to be able to be sure that their technologies, their ideas, whatever it's going to be, is heard and seen? So absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We take very much the same approach. It's very collaborative. We think of the plant as the center, and we circle the plant. So what does the plant need? And we do partner and collaborate with a lot of people. And for us, technology is a very wide definition. So Rory is circling the plant, helping us build our regenerative soils. And Paul and Lauren are circling the plant, helping us build community and helping us have a farm where we can partner and they can grow their food. And we use other technologies, water technologies, energetic elements is one, for example, that we're big fans of. And then pretty much anybody that comes in with an idea or an approach, we're open to listening as long as it serves the plant and the food and builds nutrient density and secondary metabolite expression in that plant. So yeah, I'll stop there. He has more to say, I'm sure.
So let's go back to Mother Nature. Mother Nature works in a very symbiotic way. And we need to learn to do that ourselves instead of trying to find ways to just hold on to the greatest thing we have in the whole world, and it's what I'm doing. If you reach out and do these, and I really appreciate the comment that you've made, it's hard to find. People talk about it, but they normalize because of the way our systems are set up by our government, by our marketing, by Wall Street, they all get in the way of our health. They all get in the way of working with each other. They get in that way. We have to break down those barriers, and it's for us that we're doing this. It isn't for someone else. So if we keep that in our mind and stop thinking about the normalization of what large corporations, food, big ag, big pharma, money, all of these things, then we can do those kind of things.
Great question. And Brown's gas stacks really well in various ways. First of all plants need water. All plants need sunshine. All plants need minerals and care, just like the rest of this panel is saying as well. So by putting the Brown's gas in the water, it gives the plants nutrition that they need, which is essentially the hydrogen, because they're hydrocarbon beings just like us. And but it also allows other areas of agriculture, like if you're burning fuel to run the tractors or generators or whatever else you're doing, the Brown's gas enhances the combustion, allowing more efficiency. So it just fits right in with whatever anyone else is doing, and I'm trying to do that. And a quick little story, I rented a table at a cannabis convention in Toronto, Canada, with the intention of speaking to the other cannabis people that were there and getting the Brown's gas into their operations. And it was absolutely closed. Not one of them had any interest whatsoever in experimenting with Brown's gas, putting it into their operations. Now, obviously, I went to the wrong venue, wrong people, and one of the reasons that I'm so appreciative of being here, because it's so accepting of getting this out there. And so stacking is good, but you also have to get it implemented and be collaborative. You have to find your right market.
Big fan of stacking. The soil science system that I've come up with over the years, I actually call it integrative land care, kind of being a double entendre of both integrative of the earth and of our communities, but also integrative of, contemporary conventional science, modern instruments and analytics, but also traditional wisdom and ancient knowledge, and how these things, when you get into a unified theory, they don't contradict one another. They are one and the same. And as for technologies I'm excited to collaborate with, the sky's the limit. The blockchain type stuff, it's totally not my world, and so people finding different ways to actually make these tangibly sustainable and regenerative and actually applicable to our societies and to these living systems is really exciting. And also, electroculture, and there's so much exciting stuff coming out right now that, yeah.
Wow, what an amazing group of people. Let's give them a big round of applause. I know I can sleep better at night knowing that these people are working on these really important problems to our food and health. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and we're going to roll to an ad.
Logos is reimagining Web3 using 3 primary protocols to develop a privacy-focused, neutral, decentralized tech stack. Nomos is private modular blockchains for cyberstates. Codex is a durable, decentralized data storage protocol that preserves knowledge without the risk of censorship. And Waku is a censorship-resistant protocol for private peer-to-peer communication.
So we are about to roll to our next speaker. This person is someone who I've been chatting with the past few days, meeting up around Morelia, and he is super knowledgeable and intelligent and has a wide domain of knowledge in a bunch of different areas. But today he's going to be talking about how we really restore the life to the soil and to the plants in the forests that are being depleted by all these different industrial complexes. So without further ado, please welcome Rory Turnbull to the stage.
Greetings, everyone. It's been a long time since I've seen you. Let's see here. Do we have the slides? Oh, cool. So my talk today is Earth Health. It's a very broad, general term, and that's the idea. It took me, ironically, quite a number of years to come up with such a simple term. You know, I've had biogeochemistry, biogeotechnical, you know, get as, thanks, man. You know, get as scientific, you know, because when you're trying to articulate these dynamic, complex systems, you can get a lot of word, you know, alphabet soup very quickly, and you know, it just, you know, over the years of explaining to people what my passions are, it's, you know, soil, but soil is so much more than just agriculture and plants. You know, it's our atmospheric health, it's our water health, it's, you know, the way, you know, so many of our economic and ecological systems, literally the nexus point which energy and material flows through them is the soil. And so today's talk it will go into integrative land care in soil systems, but it's really, this is a system I've been working on for about half my life now, and you guys are pretty much the first ones to see this. This is the perfect venue, I figured. And essentially, this is an open source alternative to the World Health Organization, and providing a framework for public health, environmental health, and wildlife health that is practical and tangible and actually, you know, pro-human, and you know, it checks all the boxes. And so it's this, warning, this is going to be a fire hose. I have a lot of slides, a lot of topics, and the idea really is the slides are going to go up, but mainly go back to them and digest them. They're going to be very info dense, and it's really just going to be kind of showing you a lot of the potential and the future and a lot of exciting stuff. And you know, today the intention, you know, there's so much toxicity and negativity in the world, and there's so much abundance and positivity to be found in nature. And so, you know, my intention today is provide a message of hope, essentially. And so my journey started with my own health, going into, you know, eating toxic food, you know, ate almost nothing but processed food growing up, and then, you know, did a complete 180 and saw what that did to my own health, and, you know, led me down this path, which, you know, this concept that kind of struck me like a bolt of lightning one day was something I call Gaiazyme, which is a combination of Gaia, which are a living earth, and enzyme, or a catalyst. And so, you know, being a catalyst for a living earth, or essentially, you know, being the concept of acting as, you know, a metabolite or a cell or an organ or a system of Gaia's physiology, and how when you're truly when we're actually at our genetic potential, our economic potential, our social potential, everything we do ultimately, all the energy, material, information we produce, consume, and exude ultimately ultimately manifests as the healthy metabolic functioning of a living earth. And so, how to reconnect, a reintegration of and with the earth, both, putting it together and putting ourselves back together with it, because they are one and the same. And, the idea being really focused on something I call synanthropic ecology. Synanthropy is, playing on philanthropy, saying you like humans, or having a like of humanity, but syn, S-Y-N, being the root for with, so with humanity. And there's in ecology, there's something called synanthropic species, which are things that essentially thrive amongst human settlements, like things like crows or raccoons or pigeons, all these things. And so the idea here is expanding the list of synanthropic organisms to include pretty much all wildlife we can imagine. And so the vision is total remediation and fortification of Earth's holobiome microbiome system. And basically that's a fancy way of saying from the macro to the micro, from Mother Earth as a whole down to the smallest microbes, complete remediation and elimination of toxicity, getting to sustainability. But again, sustainability is the floor. Yoshi and Paula, their presentation was amazing, pointing that out of, that, just sustaining ourselves that's the floor. Regenerating and healing and getting, abundance and nutrient density, fortifying these systems, that's the ceiling, and that's really what we need to be aiming for. And with that, there's some of these core principles that, it's, when you get into these systems, there's so many different terms and terminologies that it can be so overwhelming. And me, I'm fond of systems thinking as well, and I like to organize all these different concepts into, what's the root function? We talk about sovereignty or, autonomy and, sovereignty and, different aspects of freedom. And to me, those can all be categorized under autonomy. And, the inverse of autonomy is ecology, because autonomy is your self-law, your self-governance, and, your ecology is your home base, your community. And so having, a balance between those two is very critical. And so who here is a fan of conservatives or liberals? Who's a fan of liberation? Who's a fan of conservation? See, so to me, we get so caught up in, all these different words, but it's, to conserve means to keep, to liberate means to free. You need a balance of both. If complete freedom is chaos, you're floating out in space. Complete, keeping is authoritarianism. And so, how do we, navigate these realms, and, what can we take from these systems that are, healthy and, balancing of these? And again, coming into the remediation and fortification aspect of, not just restoring and, getting to sustainability, but actually getting to abundance and regeneration. And so then there's the domains that this operates through, which is the biosphere, the lithosphere, the hydrosphere, and the atmosphere, which is a fancy way of saying, life, the mineral soil, just the rocks, the water, and the air. And the nexus point that connects these domains that allows energy and material to flow through them is the soil, or carbon. And see, this is where carbon is actually our best friend and our ally. And the carbon in soil is what allows the energetic material flows between them. And it can't be overstated how much, carbon capture and carbon sequestration is essential for, building ecosystems, building health. There's so much talk about the excess carbon in the atmosphere, but the reason why we have excess carbon in the atmosphere, and beyond CO2, I'm not into the CO2 thing, but it's just, if there was such a thing as too much carbon in the atmosphere, it's a carbon cycle. It's a broken cycle. It's not just that, oh, there's carbon just going up there and we can't do anything about it. We just got to start taxing everyone and prevent them from putting carbon in the atmosphere. No, there's a cycle. There's a system that pulls that carbon out of the atmosphere, puts it in the soil, puts it in the biomass, and that's the soil. And so the mission, simultaneously optimize public, wildlife, and environmental health through carbon-based reintegration of and with the biosphere, lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. And so the objectives there, provide coherence, connections, and conduit that promote the interface, exchange, and inertia between micro and macro energy, material, and informational inputs, operations, and outputs. Now that is quite complex and quite dynamic, and that's exactly what humus does. Humus is the fancy word for the carbon compound in soil. So when you look at black, rich, fertile soil that's got that wonderful smell, that black color is humus, which is the stable carbon compound that essentially is the leftover remnants of all the decomposing organic matter that when it gets broken down into its base components, it gets built back up into this very specific chemical structure that I call it the Swiss Army knife of molecules. It can literally do almost anything you can imagine. It's a really amazing thing. And the idea with the Earth Health System and with Gaiazyme is really biogeomimicry of humus. And how do we tie those dynamics into the invisible structures of these models, and how do we emulate that? And this graphic here is, you see on the side it's a little small, but on the side there, you've got the liberation, conservation, remediation, fortification under autonomy, and then under ecology, biosphere, lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and the carbon nexus point that connects all of them. And again, that's what we're trying to emulate here. And so that ties into a concept I call co-humification, which is the idea of kind of social, political, and economic compost. And that the thing with humus is that stuff doesn't just decompose down into humus. You need a specific environment for things to decompose, but then build back up into this particular stable structure that provides a foundation for future generations. And that really, I think, is a concept we need to bring into politics and social concepts, is the idea of composting and kind of transmuting these various systems, and a key point in which the difference between putrefaction and humification, like things just going sour and rotten, and if you took that putrefied organic matter and put it on your garden, it would kill your plants. The difference is oxygen and an environment where the decomposition can breathe. And I think that also is a very important concept for working through these systems that we're designing. And so that brings us to the actual system itself, the Earth Health System. And it's divided into public health, wildlife health, and environmental health. And under this actually will go into in later slides, but broke down into physiology, sociology, ecology for public health, and because sociology is just as important as our physiology. Having a regenerative and abundant culture, a community, an economy, these are just as important as healthy food, healthy water, healthy air, all these types of things. And getting into wildlife health, the key components there, biomass, biodiversity, bioactivity, these are, again, very broad concepts that so much of these things can be tied into. And the idea here is providing a roadmap for people to navigate these very complex systems that we've been very disconnected from. And same thing with environmental health. And we'll jump into this, but like I said, there's a lot of energy, a lot of info here. And I want to jump to a few concepts that all tie into this. One called eco-immunology. This is a system I've kind of been working on for a little while now, and the idea being, what are the core concepts of ecological immunity, and getting past this, really fear-based, pathogen-based thinking, and not into, kind of almost, what's a navigation between terrain theory and germ theory. I'm not a terrain maximalist, I'm not a germ maximalist, but I think there's evidence and a lot of wisdom to be taken from both schools of thought. And so, with that, the holobiont, microbiome, holobiont is, most people are familiar with the microbiome concept, but you being a symphony of all these different organisms working together, that makes you a holobiont. And that is, meaning a whole macroorganism. But the thing is that algorithm of symbiosis goes down to each one of your cells. Each one of your cells is a symbiotic ecosystem. The leading theory of cellular biology right now is it's called the endosymbiont theory, endosymbiogenesis. And it's a concept that literally every cell in your body was an archaea that had a bacteria climb inside of it, and they had a symbiotic relationship going, and eventually it became so stable that that bacteria evolved into what we now call the mitochondria. And so all the mitochondria in your cells actually has its own DNA, it's its own kind of set of organisms, and it's really formed this ecosystem. And again, that just from micro to macro goes up. And so core components here, get the host or terrain, the cybernetics, being a kind of a feedback loop. It's a really important key component of sustainable ecosystems, is having a feedback loop. And the vectors. I'll jump to the passive and active aspects. So the holobiont, microbiome is kind of the form, and the functions, if you will, would be passive immunology or active immunology. And a really key component there is vectors. That's a key component in eco-sanitation, is the idea that sterilization is not synonymous with sanitation. It's having a wide diversity of beneficial or benign organisms is actually much more conducive to preventing disease than just hammering and trying to kill everything and sterilize everything. Actually, I'll jump to the next slide, because the next slide has a few examples. And so there you got the endosymbiont theory shown, which I went into. But then you also get things like extracellular vesicles, things like exosomes or microvesicles. And those are essentially in the same category as viruses. And a lot of people don't realize that viruses are actually communication mechanisms between cells. And it's we have what's called endogenous viral elements. It's said that up to 8% of the human genome is genes that we've acquired from previous viral infections. Like they say, the ability for mammals to form placenta was a gene we inherited from a retrovirus, billions of years ago. And so the idea that most cellular communication and viral interaction is actually positive. It's actually a beneficial thing. The nutrient cycling in the soils and the oceans is done through viral communication, and also these extracellular vesicles, exosomes, microvesicles that are kind of hard to distinguish. When a virus is emitted by a bacterial cell, it's called a phage. It's the same exact structure, but because it's emitted by this cell, they call it one thing. And so there's a lot of overlap with the terminologies, and I think moving forward, there's a lot of accountability and auditing that needs to be done by the people. We need to look through and see what's an extracellular vesicle, what's a virus, and even with these viruses, is it actually the viruses themselves that are eliciting toxicity, or is it the toxic environment? Because it's get too much on this, but really, essentially, you can think of these as cellular poop. And poop, it can be either manure and fertilizer, or it can be, a world of pain, of toxicity. And think of a pile of dairy manure that's just leaching into the groundwater versus a rotational grazing operation. It's night and day difference. And then also horizontal gene transfer is another method. You get quorum sensing. There's just really so much communication between microorganisms, between our cells, that it's a symbiotic relationship. And and that comes up to the top corner there, which shows a lot of different forms of symbiosis. You have mutualism. A lot of people are familiar with parasitism or competition, but again, a really important one is commensalism. And commensal means one organism benefits and the other organism doesn't care. It's just benign. It's not hurting or helping. But the fact that you have organisms occupying vectors and spaces in the system that aren't pathogen, you know, they're consuming resources, they're occupying space, that's now a space and resources that that organisms with nefarious intent can't occupy. You know, it's kind of almost akin to a crowded marketplace versus an empty marketplace. It's much easier for someone to steal something in an empty marketplace than a crowded marketplace. And so really having a whole host of different you know, biodiversity and microorganisms is very key between, and again, because this is, you know, ecosystem immunology, and the idea of you're an ecosystem, Morelia is an ecosystem, the planet's an ecosystem, and so, you know, it's a motif that goes from micro to macro. And let's see, and that brings us to the same concept, ecopathology. And ecopathology is a system I've been working on in defining, you know, what are these universal pathologies that afflict ecosystems. And, you know, over the course of my life and career, it's really distilled down to dysbiosis, toxicity, and disintegration. And, you know, and a major factor of dysbiosis is isolation. You know, that's really a lot of the times what's the major cause of dysbiosis, and one of the major causes of toxicity, if not the cause, people say the poison is, it's all in the dose, is the concentration. You know, that goes from, you know, autotoxicity, ecotoxicity, psychotoxicity. You know, you've got poisons, pollution, prisons, you know, and these are, again, they're broad concepts, but that's the idea, is that, you know, these are dynamic, complex systems we're working with. You know, how do we, you know, have, you know, how do we have, you know, concise roadmaps to really navigate this stuff? And then, you know, disintegration is a major problem when it comes to ecosystems, and I feel in terms of our modern society particularly, but also in general with ecosystems, is what the main issue with disintegration is transportation, is the inability to transport, you know, resources or materials from one area to the other. But also we get to a toxic inversion of that with our modern society, which is where we are, in an unhealthy way, we are dependent on importation and exportation. You know, which leads us, you know, open to exploitation. You know, and so when you rely on all of your materials and energy to be, you know, imported from another ecosystem, another region, when they're having, you know, disaster or famine, or, you know, things aren't right, you know, working, you know, that's essentially the basis of a lot of war, you know, aside from greed, is this, you know, scarcity, and the fact that we've derailed our own sustainability, our own abundance, our own autonomy, and now we're relying on other systems. And then when they're not able to provide, are you just going to be like, oh, okay, well, we're just going to starve now because we don't have food? It's like, nope, people usually go and take stuff. And so, you know, and that goes much into, you know, the microbial ecosystem too, as well, as far as opportunism. You know, there's a big, you know, a lot of people are familiar with pleomorphism and the idea that, you know, a human cell can transmute into another cell, or a certain microbe can transmute into another microbe. But there's also just the concept of opportunism, and that a lot of, you know, like in agriculture, for example, fusarium is a pathogen that attacks a lot of crops, but it's found now that in a healthy ecosystem, a healthy soil environment, fusarium is actually a plant probiotic, and it actually helps the plant grow. It's just when the chips are down, when the system's depleted, it becomes an opportunist and starts attacking the plant. And that seems to be happening more and more with a lot of pathogens, as we pull the thread. And that brings us into human pathology. This is, again, just wanted to make sure and just provide a lot of really actionable, useful data for you guys, because again, there's a lot of theory here, but I really want to make sure there's a lot of practical stuff as well. And so, you know, these are a lot of the leading issues I find with human health is, you know, sedentary lifestyle, GMOs, glyphosate, junk oils, anti-nutrients, inflammatory mediators, overprocessed foods, overcooked foods, xenobiotics, which just means foreign chemicals that have never been in our ecosystem before, antibiotics, iodine blockers, and mycotoxins. That on the right too is a very sobering graphic that GMO crops produce formaldehyde instead of glutathione. And another interesting factor is you get a 2.7-fold increase in putrescine and a 28-fold increase in cadaverine. Those are the chemicals you smell when you smell a rotting corpse. So we're basically growing zombie plants. And some very important areas, so that's in the human pathology. The next slide is going into the wellness factor, and so this is kind of a bridge between the two. These are realms and domains that I feel are very important and are very underappreciated, underknown, and the microbiome is becoming more popular. The endocannabinoid system is becoming more and more well known with the cannabis movement, but really the endocannabinoid system it's an extension of mammalian nervous systems. Literally all vertebrate animals have an endocannabinoid system, and your body is heavily regulated by these molecules, and they're synthesized from essential fatty acids, so you don't have to consume cannabis. There's nothing to do with that, but that's why cannabis impacts so many different areas of the human body. And so that's a really important area to look into. And then you have what's called the interstitium and also the extracellular matrix. And the interstitium was discovered in 2018. And it's pretty much the largest organ in the human body. And we have about 11 liters of interstitial fluid and about 5 liters of blood. And so this is actually the majority of the fluid in your body, and it's the space in between your cells. And so this channel and network is really where a lot of the link between your gut dysbiosis going up through the yeast overgrowth, the candida, all these different fungal infections and dysbiosis within the microbiome. A lot of that takes place in the interstitium. And again, to the interstitium, so you'll see there, that's where your blood, the vein goes through the interstitium, and so it's literally the oxygen in your blood has to travel through the interstitium before it can get to your cells. And so having an imbalanced pH or redox, which is up there, redox is a really, really important factor. The idea being that essentially pH, many people are familiar with, is a measurement of protons. EH is a measurement of electrons. And it's never ceases to amaze me how few people know about redox and EH, and even people that are very, very scientifically, advanced. And so these are very, very crucial systems to look into. Human wellness here, it's not a typo, that's actually the brand, that's the company. I have the human wellness focused company I have. These are really important tips, and over the years I've found these are kind of some of the most lacking or important things people can incorporate into their diet and lifestyle. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here just because we're running on time. And so again, public health, the idea being, the human physiology is important, but again, just as important is our sociology and our ecology, how we interact with each other and how we interact with our environment. And, and again, these broken down into core concepts, and again, even further then. And this framework, again, the idea is, this is just to inspire. This is just to provide people with a framework and knowledge that I just feel is really lacking. And our world today is so over-specialized and so over-compartmentalized that when you're starting down this road, it can be really daunting. And so I hope this can provide a roadmap. And then coming into wildlife health, you get the biomass, the biodiversity, the bioactivity. Important thing there is keystone species, creatures that any loss of an organism to a species is a detriment, but certain organisms just really take out a lot of momentum from the ecosystem, and those are really, really important to focus on. And providing habitat. We talk so much about restoring wildlife, but the reason why so much wildlife isn't there is because they don't have habitat anymore. And so habitat restoration is just as important, which comes into environmental health. And this, there's biointegrity, biosecurity, and biosafety. And the idea being, and so actually with Lydia and Arturo's talk, they mentioned geobiology, which is how the earth affects the organisms. Biogeology is how the organisms affect the earth. And so that's a really important concept in terms of healing these land ecosystems, is how we can collaborate with living organisms to heal these landscapes. And I'll jump forward to, so here's some practical examples of biointegrity. So with the biogeology, you have geomorphology, which is just the shape of the landscape. It has so much to do with, when you remove the biology from the ecosystem, that is what keeps the soil in place. That's what anchors the soil in place. And so when we deforest an area, when the rain comes, that's what causes erosion. And so a lot of times in these systems where we want to restore the biology, we actually need to reform the geology a little bit and the landscape to actually have it harvest water and actually be able to be more conducive. Concepts of succession in ecosystems is a really important concept of that nature's not a static thing. An old growth forest was once a meadow, and the idea that different species come in and they create a microclimate, which then ushers in another microclimate for another set of species, and that's a really core concept to nurture and foster. And bioclimatology is a very important one. We hear all this talk about climate, and it's mind-boggling because I think what they say, it's like 90-something% of the temperature in the climate is actually affected by water vapor. The greenhouse gases only affect a very small percentage, but both greenhouse gases and water vapor are driven by the biology. It's the main factor in our Earth's climate is the ecosystem, and is the ecology. And you have what's called albedo, which is the idea of light being reflected. Think of a parking lot versus an old growth forest. If I poured this water on a parking lot, under baking hot sun, that water would be gone in a matter of minutes. If I go into an old growth forest where there's a thick duff layer, lots of shade, I pour that water there, I can come back in a few days, it'll probably still be moist. And so the idea is, how do we increase plant cover, vegetation cover, increase transpiration, and groundwater recharge, and a lot of different concepts there. Comes into biogeochemical cycles. The idea, again, we talked about the carbon cycle and the idea that this finite thing of all carbon's just going up there, what are we going to do? It's a cycle that needs to be recycled, but it's the same thing with nitrogen and oxygen and phosphorus and sulfur. All these elements, just as your body has cycles to move these elements and minerals around, the planet has the same thing. And that's where, on a macro scale, we need to really look at linking these systems together. And a core concept is planetary boundaries. And I think that's something that needs to be investigated more. I think there's a lot to that, but again, so much of this stuff has been skewed by corporate interests and government interests, and so which of these are actually a factor. But there is definitely thresholds and limits to what our ecosystem can sustain, and we do need to find out what those are. Let's see here. And I think I'm pretty getting low on time. There's a concept called One Health that has a lot of similar concepts, but it's not the one. It's really just a lot of marketing and using the same terminology, but it's the same kind of system as usual, same weaponized, centralized, technocratic. Raw foods are bad, but vivisection's okay. That kind of stuff. And so again, what makes us different and what makes this movement different, it's positive. The idea of thriving and stoke and abundance and healing and regeneration, not just treating symptoms, but also, again, synanthropy. Humans are a keystone species. The planet needs humans. And just this whole anti-human insanity it's anti-Earth. It's anti-Mother Earth, because Mother Earth needs humans. And there's getting into so it's both positive and it's relative. Again, ecosystem dysbiosis is so much more important than climate, than climate change or climate shift. Ecosystem services are so much more efficient and sustainable than government services. And ecological health is equal to social health. And let's see here. Just going to shotgun through this. So a very important concept I want to leave you guys with is focusing on forms and functions. We get so caught up in words and terminologies that a lot of times we're arguing the same thing, but we're just using different words for it. And so, geoengineering is a concept I'm sure you're all very familiar with, and it's, anthropocentric geoengineering, or anthropogenic, human-centered and human-generated geoengineering with the chemtrails, all that stuff. It's atrocious, but the idea that if we reforested, thousands of acres of land, that's geoengineering. You're engineering the geology, but you're doing it with biology. And so the idea, the idea there is biogeoengineering was meant to kind of be triggering to open to the idea that there's a lot of these kind of, like a syringe, vaccines. There's vaccines, but you can also use a syringe to inject vitamin C or glutathione. And so it's, this technology, this apparatus isn't necessarily inherently the wrong thing, but it's, what's it being used for? And some practical examples, there's bioremediation, agro-rewilding, and a really amazing concept is this stuff called Wolbachia, which is the idea that the ability, mosquitoes actually breed depending on their microbiome. And, there's a lot of people are familiar with the scary stuff being done with mosquitoes with nefarious interests. There's groups doing amazing stuff with mosquitoes where it's literally just shifting the microbiome, and you can eliminate a lot of the, I think it was like 70% reduction in dengue in some of the areas that they were trying this out, and none of the scary Pandora's box type of stuff. So we've got a few more slides, but I'll leave you with this one. Soil is the answer. Now what's your question? And so,
Hey, make some more noise for Rory. I mean, clearly he could go on for another hour. And this is the great thing. I want to again remind everybody who's at home, watching from home, this is the great thing about coming in person. You get to connect with the speakers who are here in person. Rory's going to be here with us the rest of the event, so please find him, chat with him, get to know his work. They're very brilliant. So yeah, you can kind of maybe get a feel for the types of technology we're exploring today. We're looking at all different areas, and we're going to continue that trend in just a moment. First, we're going to do a couple of housekeeping announcements. First off, if anybody tried to attend Dr. Ross's workshop this morning, the quantum muscle response testing, it was moved to tomorrow, so sorry if anybody went there. Moved to tomorrow, same time, 8 to 9:30. It's free, and it's at the other venue. The information has been updated on the website if you want to check that out. Also want to mention, for those who are going to stick around after the Greater Reset, next Tuesday there's a trip to the pyramids, the local pyramids, and Miriam and I are going to go. So if you guys want to come join us, and whoever comes, if you're still in town, get to check out the pyramids. It's from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I believe Lydia and Arturo, anybody hear them speak the last couple of days on Thursday? They're going to come with, and they said that they will do a short 5 to 7 minute kind of like temple meditation there, try to activate the pyramid as well. So if anybody wants to come join that, that's Tuesday. The pyramids, you can find that on the website as well. A couple more announcements here for in-house. There's going to be a online course workshop at 12:50. If anybody's curious, you can go out there, at 12:30. And you can come out front there and meet them in the courtyard to get registered and go on a walk with them. That's Melanie Rubin, who spoke yesterday, teaching people how to put their online courses together. Next one up, let's talk about the party tonight. Anybody still have energy and wanting to go out this evening or tomorrow? Okay, well, a community member, Bruce, who's always here and always bringing the good vibes, is hosting a party tonight, after-party music called Decentralize. And it's actually got all of the performers from day one and from tomorrow who are going to be performing at this local venue, the Amati Restaurant and Jazz Club. And their plan is if you want to show up early, like 7 or something, and get dinner with them, you're welcome to do that. And then the music will be at 8:30, so you can check that out. That has been posted on the Telegram group. Got one more announcement, actually two more. There is also here tonight at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in this room, we will be doing a documentary screening, which is going to be the premiere here in Morelia. Which is, I'm featuring in it, plenty of other people. It's basically about exploring, what does it mean to be a black sheep in today's world? And anybody maybe feel like they're the black sheep in their family? Well, Oliver, thank you. Oliver, who's the director and the producer of it, he traveled all around the world the last couple of years interviewing people like myself and plenty of others, just asking questions like, what does being a black sheep mean to you? How do, just different, exploring that concept. And he's going to be screening that tonight. It is a Spanish documentary, so I invite everybody to stick around and catch that and enjoy that. 6 p.m. tonight. He'll be coming and talk a little bit more about that. And then the other thing I want to mention, we're almost done with announcements. There's a retreat coming up in Costa Rica in March, which Miriam and I will be participating. It's a Freedom Cell retreat for those who know about the Freedom Cells movement. And we're trying to just continue building it out in Costa Rica. And Elias, who's one of our performers, and some others are organizing it. It's an activist nature immersion. You can see it on screen there. And for those of you who are interested, please come by and get information. These flyers are being passed around. Elias has some. Come get them. 5 days, 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, meditation, freedom cells discussions, good, clean food. I'm going to be there. You should come hang out with us. See Elias for more info. All right? And one more. Just wanted to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Peter, with the Odolite River Valley Eco Center, which is in, I don't know how to pronounce it, Algarve, Portugal. Anybody know better than me? Yeah, so you know where it's at. And it's a very beautiful area. I've seen some of the pictures. I haven't been able to go myself. But Peter is a member of the Freedom Cell Network based in the UK and in Europe. And he's developing this project. And the way he's been describing it to us is this is really meant to be an eco-complex. Like he's got big visions for eco-lodge, community center, yoga, pool. And he's looking for investors from our community who are obviously like-minded like us here. And he has a special going on now for people who want to get in early and be VIP shareholders. And he's got some deals where you can basically get some pretty good returns. And he wants this to be like a free living community right by the river, etc. The website for that would be thegreenmanhotel.org/VIPSS. And you can find that at thegreaterreset.org/sponsors. So thank you guys. We're going to move on to our next presenters.
Hey, yes. I hope y'all are ready for this. It's my pleasure to invite 2 of my good friends that I've gotten to know over the past few weeks who are working on a really revolutionary project that can end homelessness. Just I'm putting it out there, it can end homelessness. Just the weight of that is on their shoulders, and I've looked into their golden hearts, and I think that they can handle the responsibility. So it's my honor and pleasure to welcome Don and Alexander from Integrate to the stage. Let's give them a big round of applause.
All right, Greater Reset. Pew, pew. Oh, wait.
Hey, man, we talked about this. No finger guns.
No finger guns. Sorry. So, quick. How's everybody doing today? Saturday, right? We're getting through the Greater Reset? Yeah. So, quick disclaimer before we get started. Due to a little formatting issue, we've had to convert our slides to PDF. So, unfortunately, we've lost all of these really cool transitions that we had. So, if you could help us out as we go through these slides, just imagine really cool transitions between the slides, okay? We'll maybe make some sound effects or something so you can get the feel for it. Things like that. I'm Alexander.
And I am Don.
And today we're going to talk to you a little bit about Integrate. Integrate is one arm of a much larger 8-armed design. And this design, as we alluded to a little bit before, although Akeem tried to steal our thunder a little bit, is designed to be able to ensure that communities get off on the right foot. There's a lot of components that unfortunately have led to statistics where most communities, and actually around 80 to 90% of them, fail in their first 3 years. I don't know if you guys knew that. And it's usually simple things. It's usually foundational things or financial things or their types of buildings or ill planning in those ways. So, being as a systems mind, looking at the ways in which we can ensure that these communities get off the ground is going to be the most important piece for all of these communities that are coming together now. Integrate is the first arm that we're launching here with this, and this has to do with our building technologies and the innovations and the integrations that we have included in those. So is this here?
So what is the mission? Right? The mission is to utilize technologies that enrich natural living. Okay? So we're here to really support the legacies of custom home builders, retreat and event centers, communities, and eco-villages. How many people here are custom home builders? You're either a builder or you want to build a new home or an addition onto your existing structure. All right, all right. Awesome, awesome. How many people have a retreat or event center? Okay, okay. And I would imagine probably all of us were here. We want a community or eco-village. How many of us? Probably all of us. All right.
Nice. Nice.
Awesome.
All of these technologies that we're going to be talking about today can be applied to all of these different areas, whether you're just building a home on your own property, whether you're looking to be expanding large into an event center where you have a lot of people, a lot of different types of building, a lot of different technologies included in that, or if you're expanding into and adding yourself into communities and eco-villages. So is this. Pew! Did you guys see that transition there? That was nice, huh?
Yeah. So let's take an innovative approach to building, right? We have all these technologies that are out in the world. We have all these building methodologies, right? Well, we can get a little bit more innovative with things, right? Let's start with materials, right? I think what's really important is that we have locally sourced natural materials. With supply chain issues, right, that could be on the horizon, why aren't we sourcing things locally within at least a 500-mile radius, which is what they would consider conventionally as locally resourced? Why can't we actually get that down to the next county or actually right down to the land itself?
And when we're building these buildings on these properties, why aren't we building buildings to last? I think that it's silly that we continue to use old practices of just building lumber buildings, and who here has seen a wooden building in the jungle after 10 years? What happens, right? Rot, mold, starts to break down, it's going to degrade too. So the buildings that we're building and the technology that we use, and the materials that we use in this actually are resistant to mold, resistant to fire, resistant to rot, resistant to pests, resistant to inclement weather. Even if we're looking at these areas where massive tropical storms are coming through and devastating them, why are we rebuilding the entire town out of timber frame homes again? So it can happen again in 3 years and all these people can be out of homes again. There might be a small agenda there.
And then also affordable buildings. I think that it's important that as the population expands and more people are being considered home free, or we could call them homeless, that we actually make affordable buildings. And affordable does not mean that the materials are cheap or that the building is made cheaply either.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be, again, if we're looking at the affordable housing market right now, what is going into most of these homes? Cheaper material, right? We're sourcing from all over the world to find the absolute cheapest way that we can get into this. What's going to happen to that? We heard a little bit this week about toxicity in the buildings, right? You're using toxic chemicals, binders, all these other things to just get a cheap home up quickly and fast. And then at the end of the day, the people that are living in that are worse off perhaps than they were before.
Our generation as well is finding it harder and harder to actually afford a home, right? So we need affordable homes that the up and coming generations can afford and that we can actually acquire for future generations to come as well. For our kids, and our kids.
So these are amazing approaches to innovations for that. So how can we bring all these together? We found that the best answer is through 3D printing.
3D printing allows you to actually address any site, and it's extremely flexible, extremely unique in that regard because we can accommodate a lot of the challenges that traditional building methods can't actually address and tackle. Of course, you can work with traditional structures. You know, if you like it square, rectangular, and you like it that way, and you want to be more traditional, you can do that as well, no problem. But 3D printing also allows us to accommodate more organic shapes and forms that are more pleasing to the eye, natural curves, and that also allows us to approach the interior design in a unique way as well.
The availability of the customizations that can happen through 3D printing brings it, as Indon said, not only from the outside of the buildings and the shapes of the buildings, but brings it inside as well. How many people here in construction have ever built a curved wall? Yeah, that's fun, huh? Right? Trying to build a curve, a natural curve, which is something that energetically, if we look at the way that the energy is moving through the home, is more conducive toward energy moving through, feeling better being in the home, right? Now, if you're looking at classic construction trying to do that, that's going to take a while. 3D printing, that's a swoop that just got printed there, right? It also allows for internal customization of textures, of placements, of fixtures, of where the placements for the furniture can go to. All of this can be customized within the home. We use technology to help innovate this as well, using machine learning to help ensure that any type of way that you want to see that built, you can work within our digital design software, walk yourself through your home. You can do it the Oculus way if you want to really be immersed in the whole thing and get seasick. I don't know if you guys have been in those things before, they're crazy. Or you can use it on your computer and walk through and, I'd like to move this wall this way, I'd like to add this shape here, I kind of want this texture on the wall, I want to add this type of fixture in there. All of that can be done and innovated through the technology that we're building.
And if you're a contractor, you know that there's kind of a siloing that happens between the different specialties, right? Somebody has a trade in plumbing, somebody has electrical, and they're actually not communicating during the design process. With the advent of AI coming in and actually approaching it from a very benevolent, integrative, supportive way, all the designers can actually come into the space, including the actual home buyer or the people that are supporting the project, and then we can actually come into the space virtually and design it together, whereas it's, for some people that don't think in blueprints, it's really hard for them to actually visualize what's being built. But now that you actually step into a space with them, you can actually begin to see it. And with machine learning, with AI, you can have an AI assistant that handles all of the codes, all of the design elements, especially if you're incorporating other alternative design elements that we'll talk about. That can be acquired and addressed there in the AI software as well. Other forms of technology that help with that integrative design process are things like LiDAR surveying, which allows us to 3D map an entire environment, say for a community or an eco-village who's dealing with multiple hectares or mass acreage. You can now 3D map that site, and then you have all of the topography, all the geometrics, and all the survey data that allows you to get to designing a lot faster. Cue that video. And now we have a short video. Life. Thank you. Thank you.
Wait, we're not done. We're not done. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you. That's appreciated. So we chose to partner with the technology that you saw there, which is called WASP and is modeled after the Potter Wasp. And many different reasons that we partnered with them. We dove a little bit into the technology. We're going to recap that in a second. But at a foundation, they have aligned values to ours. They believe that 3D printing can be used to shape the future, that it can be used in a community to print everything from, as we say, the homes down to the cups and the cutlery. Everything can be 3D printing, and this is helping to centralize the resources, as we talked about in the beginning with the building materials. You can keep that locally there. Actually, a lot of this can be done through clay. We print clay cups, right? There's any other materials they can print, resins, carbon. We can print plastics, although we try to avoid that type of thing. Metal, you can print metal, and now we can print wood polymers as well. You want to go into this?
Yeah, so you'll notice here with the wall patterns here on that structure, if you see that exposed part of the wall, notice there's this beautiful kind of sine wave pattern. What's beautiful about these printers is that they actually kind of set themselves apart from other types of 3D printers, which are basically just doing a regular wall size. With these extrusion patterns, it allows you to address many different climates, which all have different temperature ranges where you need a different R value, which is basically the insulation, right? So the ability to change the extrusion pattern to get certain effects with the wall, getting wall strengths, also the insulation and breathability is something that's extremely unique, and it allows them to do more of a curved shape, whereas a lot of the earlier 3D printers that have been on the market can't actually do curves. A lot of them have to still kind of stick with the vertical wall systems. This allows us to get into the more organic shapes and really unique forms in that way. Another thing about that is that the software that they're working with allows us to very quickly, easily adjust to the different climate needs and the different environmental factors. Notice also how the trussing there was hexagonal, right? A lot of the other 3D printing models are using square or rectangular based trussing feeds, similar to a CNC machine. If you've ever seen a CNC, it's just 2 rails. This trussing is actually what's really unique because it's entirely flexible in its application to site. That hexagon, just like a honeycomb and a beehive, can actually be modular, and so you can actually go horizontally in expansion with that, or you can also go vertically, and there's many different arrangements that we'll take a look at here in a second as far as the trussing system goes.
So because there's so many different needs for communities, so many different sites, different sizes, landscapes, it's important to have technology that can adapt to that. Another reason that we work with WASP is, as Anand was mentioned, is the hexagonal truss, the ability to work with a single system, as you're seeing on the left here. This is what we call the base configuration. This is a standard 3-prong system. There's one head that's operating in the middle of that. Great for smaller projects, great for daisy chaining around too, and having multiple of those running up on the property. But what's really exciting about this and what sets WASP apart is their ability for their dual head printer mechanisms. So they can actually have 2 printer heads that are running simultaneously in a collaborative formation, as you see in the middle, where they would be positioned on the same set of truss, working toward a single structure. And that's what you saw in the video, was those 2 heads that were working simultaneously, printing that building together. So obviously, this goes without saying, this cuts our build times down in half. Right? But the computer is intelligent enough to ensure that there's no overlap. Obviously, the heads aren't colliding or anything of that nature. Additionally, you could have those 2 heads printing simultaneously side by side, not on the same structure. So as you see on the third diagram on the bottom there's 2 separate sets of truss, but they are connected through the middle. We have a feed system that's feeding both of them simultaneously, and they're printing 2 structures side by side.
Yeah, how many people have seen like a very beautiful layout of a future community, and you have that central eating area, then you have the 6 pod homes around it, right? We've all seen those little mandalas, right? The simultaneous printers can actually be set up in that way, where the trussing actually connects the perfect geometry between the homes, and then you can actually print an entire section of your eco-village neighborhood right at once simultaneously. The other thing that's really unique about the trussing system as well is that, say you don't have multiple trusses. Well, you can take that one hexagonal truss, you can keep 1 foot anchored, you can unattach the other 5, and then that hexagonal truss can pivot around that one leg. So you can actually continue scaling the layout of the land just still using 1 truss. So whether you have multiple trusses or 1 truss, you can keep on moving that hexagon through the honeycomb and keep on printing the space.
The future, y'all. Right? Yeah. Future is here. On that note, let's talk a little bit about where we've come from, right, and where we're going to go.
All right, so climate change. Is it real? Is it not real? Is it man-made? Is it natural? This is kind of the conversation. This is the discourse that we're all having, right? And as far as what the narrative is with the mainstream, This is kind of the current belief. A lot of people are enraged, driven by passion, driven by their emotions. And I think to a degree, it's somewhere right down the middle. Some of these things are real. Are we actually that self-important enough to think that we're the ones ruining things? When the reality is that change is happening all the time. And yes, there are people out there that are intentionally modifying the climate. There are technologies like HARP and geoengineering that do disturb the environment, which is a real thing to consider.
Many construction companies and companies at large are they're catching this wave of needing to be more green, needing to be more eco-friendly, when at the end of the day, I think as a lot of us know, a lot of that's just greenwashing, right? And so finding ways that we can ensure that sustainability in projects is actually sustainable is a good place to start, right? But let's ensure that we have accountability for what people are actually doing in those practices, and ensuring that they're not just fudging the numbers, so to say, or making it look good on paper. While working with sustainable practices in that, as we said earlier, if you're still working with timber frame homes, if you're still clear cutting trees to be able to build homes, then really, is it sustainable at the end of the day, even though you're planting a couple more trees? What do we talk about the wood homes in the jungles, right? What about the wood homes in Destin, Florida? Are we building more stick frame homes? To what end, right? And at the end of the day, it is a fool's errand, I would say.
And if we're just sustaining, we're just kind of getting by. And as things get worse, right, things get ramping up, well, if we're just staying even while things are continuing to get worse, we're actually on a downward decline. And you could say in the green building space, solar and wind is kind of the primary solution that's kind of out there. I come from a background about a little over half a decade in the solar industry, and there are issues with the solar industry. You know, solar and wind are not the only solutions. At best, they're kind of they're the waiting room of greater solutions, and they each have their issues. Solar is largely mined, rare earth minerals are mined by child labor. The waste byproducts of solar cell production is extremely toxic, if not comparable, if not worse than fossil fuels. And wind is also disturbing migrational patterns. It's largely funded by the aviation industry as well, and using a lot of the same components that they didn't have anything to do with after wars kind of, didn't profit. And the other thing there is that they can only reach certain wind speeds as well. So they'll shut down, and they have a limitation in capacity. And they also have to be facing certain directions, so they actually can't accommodate the natural changes of climate that are natural, or they are the effects of our doing.
The other plug for the attempt at greenwashing too is many of these companies looking at their recycling programs. If you go into construction, you're looking at recycling construction materials. What happens to those materials? Toxins, microplastics, heavy metals leaching into our water supply, right? And then if you're shipping them off somewhere else, well, because that's great, that's the magic wastebasket, right? I throw it here, it goes somewhere else and disappears. That's not how it works, we know that. And in addition to that, you're burning more fossil fuels. We're big advocates for locally sourcing and locally dealing with these things as well. So you can look at ways that you can recycle in building materials, and that's something that is also a major bonus for us to be working with the material and the mediums that we're working with, is that it allows us to, if we're printing a building, and we're printing with the clay that we use, and we want to change a wall, we can break that wall down, compile it back up, pound it back into powder, mix it back in the mix, and print it again. Or print a new wall from there. That's truly recycling. Thank you.
So that's the 3D. Where are we going? We're going to the 5D. Okay? Yeah.
Heyo.
Damn right. So, all right, climate's changing. Great. You can find me in the 0 point. Let's integrate that, right? We got to embrace change. Change is the only constant in the universe. In fact, if we were to not just be focused on this planet, every planet in this local solar system right now is changing. We are entering the photon belt. We are being exposed to more light than we've ever been exposed to, and that is creating a lot of change inside of our DNA and in all of the life on this planet. Change is what's happening, all right? So get on the bus.
The evolution of sustainability is regeneration, right? As Anand was saying before, if you're just sustaining, if you're just maintaining, things are naturally going to be changing as the climate, the environment, all these other pieces. So just sustaining is slowly riding a downward curve. We need to look at regeneration. We need to look at replacing these things that we're taking. We need to look at ways that we can ensure that our energy systems, our homes, our plant systems are giving back to this planet that we're on, that we're borrowing from, that we're borrowing in our time that we're here. So working with the ways that we can regenerate that as well.
We also have access to free energy technologies now. A lot of the issues that we have is that we're expending our energy to then pay for more energy at our homes. Why don't we free up our energy with the technologies that exist and move into the future, right?
So how are we breaking this cycle? We're going to do a fast little run through for you here because we want to overwhelm you a little bit and show you what we have available to us now.
So
these are the current technologies that we're implementing into our buildings as of right now.
Right, so we talked about the current models of sustainability. Well, with solar, there's something that is not talked about a lot, which is organic photovoltaics. There's actually the ability to line, say, a membrane that can be put into a garden bed or into a food forest, and the actual photosynthesis reactions of the plants are actually directly responsible for producing electricity. There's also vertical access and beltless or bladeless turbines. These are helical, just like a piece of DNA, and they can actually accommodate wind from any direction at any speed. And they actually can be a lot smaller, and they can be incorporated not on wind farms, but on each and every home, which allows us to produce power even in the evening time when the sun is down.
We've got sun and wind. What about water, right? Using major water hydro dams, we're powering major cities. There are now micro hydro technologies that allow us to build a hydro dam on site in the river right outside of your property. You can throw a device in there, it's going to bring power to your home or power to your whole community. In addition to that, as water is coming into your home, every time you turn the faucet on, every time that water is going in to make ice in your refrigerator, that is generating electricity for inside of the building. And who here loves breathing in nanotechnologies? Smart dust? Anybody? Crickets? I heard that was perfect. The crickets going off right at that moment. Exactly. We have the technology now to ensure that the air coming into your home is filtering out smart dust, nanotechnologies, any of these other pieces that somebody is spraying around here, these places.
And we're also familiar with biofuels. I think that's kind of a perfect little medium ground from the old way and what's expanding. There's also things like biodigesters. So who here actually has a compost, right? Smelly, it's aerobic, yeah. So biodigesters can actually take on that bio waste and it can be used to turn into fuel on site. There's even forms of composting referred to as bokashi, which are anaerobic forms of compost. So for those of you that are the citrus and meat lovers that you can't put in your regular aerobic open air compost, that can actually go in bokashi and it can be composted in 10 days and you have gold black soil that can be put right into your beds, into your food forests, and start remineralizing your food.
All these technologies are pieces that we have available now and that we're including in these buildings, hence integrate. Let's take a quick look at what is coming down the pipe for us though too. A lot of these technologies we have direct lines on. We're connected with some of the innovators and the inventors of and the designers of these systems.
So over-unity generators are like the gateway drug to free energy. They can take a very small amount of electricity and that can be ramped up in an extremely harmonic state that starts to octave the amount of electricity. And that small amount of electricity is now a very large amount of electricity that can be used to run your home, your local eco-village neighborhood, and even an entire town. On top of that, we have vortex physics, which are being used in a lot of these systems and a lot of these free energy devices, and they are basically based on a mathematical system that is entirely coherent and unified, such as the Rodin coil, which is another form of technology that can be used for free energy.
We talked about water being used for power to power your homes. What about the water in your body? How many here are aware of structured water and the importance of drinking structured water? Oh, I love how many hands just went up. That's awesome. So in all of our buildings, ensuring that the water that's going through the home is structured before it's hitting anybody's glass, before it's even getting in your shower here too, as well as being able to vortex the water and clean it if you're in an area where sometimes the water is not as sanitary. Structuring it can help to actually trap chemicals and help to carry them through the body versus globular water that will allow them to leach into the body.
On top of that, we have...
Oh. And last question here, who's excited for AI to take over the world? Oh, okay, a couple people. I'm going to see you afterward. No, well, we believe that AI can be used to help to support communities and support the homes, right? So an example being your greenhouses that are being developed and a major storm is coming in and nobody is home to be able to close shutters or change lighting or something of that nature. It can inform you, give you that information, and even do the process for you. In addition, ensuring that communities communicate with one another. As we're building these communities, we're building networks with these as well. So every community that we design or that we help to build becomes part of this network. In that, we can use AI to be able to help trade resources, find where people need, as we had the volunteers the other day, who's looking to be in community, who's looking to be supporting in those ways. We can use machine learning, we can use benevolent AI in those ways to support us instead of enslaving us. Or maybe it still will enslave us, I don't know yet.
And that leads us to limitless energy. Once we free up our personal energy, the energy in our communities, we actually have these free energy devices and forms of production that free up our time. Now we're able to focus on not having limits and being able to truly create and innovate. There's actually things like GANs, which is gas as a nanosolid is what it stands for. And it's basically a state of energy that actually doesn't even need a technology to emit plasma fields into the building. These are the things that we're looking at incorporating into the paints, into the plasters, into the actual construction of the building itself. And you can actually have a space that's emitting a certain kind of plasma that can be healing the body, or it'd be in your office, it's making you awake, very coherent, very creative, and those sorts of things can be incorporated into these structures to start healing us as well and making us feel more limitless.
All of these things coming together, we're building the temples of tomorrow, folks. Your home should feel like a sacred space. And the last thing that we'll cover on this is, what do these temples of tomorrow include and look like? These three major components here.
Yeah, we'll leave you with this. We're here to remember the future, okay? Where we've come from has a lot of wisdom. Where we're going, we need that wisdom. Okay, we're not here to just bring this sci-fi technology into these spaces, but we're here to bring the original technologies and marry them together. Homeodynamics is one of the most original forms of building science. A lot of the ancient temples are using homeodynamic principles. How many people are familiar with biodynamics, with Steiner's work? Okay. So Steiner also had a science called homeodynamics, which was basically biodynamic architecture. Using principles of orientation to the stars, using astrophysics, using a lot of the ancient symbols and esoteric traditions, you can incorporate that into a space. Say, for instance, I want the southern part of my home, which is the energy of the sun, to be imbued with the energy of the sun. Well, the ash tree is actually ruled by the sun. So I might actually go gather ash on a Sunday at the hour of the sun down to the minute of the sun to then capture the full essence and expression of the sun into that wood. Then I might actually oil that wood with certain plants or oils that are also infusing it with that solar energy that are ruled by the sun. That is me being reverent in the way that I build and I approach that construction in a sacred way. That's one of the ways we want to incorporate with these buildings.
And if homeodynamics is the mother, biogeometry is the father. Who's here's heard of biogeometry before? Yeah. This is a patented science that is the use of shape and color to help balance energetic systems in the home or in the body. Things such as color correction in a wall can help to change the energy in that room. The ability to use devices that are non-invasive to take energy such as electricity in the walls or your Wi-Fi and turn that from a disruptive technology energy into actually a bioaffirming energy. So including that in all of the homes as well. Again, you should feel comfortable and safe in your home.
And this is really just a marrying between the mother and the father, which then there's the child. Ancient traditions like Vastu Shastra approach each building as a being. Each building is a being, right? So there's a heart. That's the heartbeat of the building and the people that live in the building. Each room is maybe an organ. Certain hallways are pathways like meridians. And that approach, you actually see it as a living thing. So you actually invite the spirit of this building down into the foundation. You begin to have a conversation with the building. That informs the relationship that we have with our spaces and brings us back to the temple. Our body is a temple, right? Our homes are a temple. And this planet is the ultimate temple.
Thank you. Thank you. We're doing this together, y'all. We can't do it alone, and we don't want to do it alone. So if you have any questions further, you can find us at integratedesigns.com. It's integrate with an 8. Clever, I know, right? We also are at a booth right out here if you want to come sign up for our mailing list. And then again, if you pause this, if you're watching at home, go back to the beginning. There's a QR code you can scan there. It's going to take you to our site. Thank you. We do this for you.
Wow, what an amazing group of speakers. And I'm excited to welcome our next guest to the stage. I had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman at the Tesla Tech conference 2 years ago, I believe. That's a conference full of scientists and engineers working on new future technology. And George was kind enough to sit down with me and tell me all about Brown's gas. And I bought one of his books too, which taught me how to not blow myself up while trying to attempt to build one of his. So I'm really appreciative of the way George shares his education and also his mission. So yeah, without further ado, George, please join us.
Thank you. Excellent. Wow, I am so happy to be here. I'm finally in a group of people that are inclusive rather than trying to separate everything. All right, I'm George Wiseman. I want to tell you a little bit about my history. Let's see if we can get this thing started here. I just click on which? Okay, so then I just go like here. Okay. I'm just going back and forth between me. I like looking at me. Okay, so you're going to be clicking? Yes. Okay, use the arrow. The arrow. Okay, down or up? To the right. Got it. Here we are. Thank you. Technology, isn't it great? So my mission is to help people with health and wealth. We want this Brown's gas technology in every home. The things that we've been finding are absolutely astonishing. And there's a lot of health practitioners out there that are using Brown's gas now. It's a growing thing. First there was the alkaline water, which it turned out, if you go in my literature, you'll discover the science has proven it wasn't the alkalinity. Those ionizers, what I call flow-through ionizers, were actually putting hydrogen in the high pH stream and oxygen in the low pH stream, and it was the hydrogen that was actually benefiting people. So that's good and fine, but everybody needs at least hydrogen, and there's a lot of pure hydrogen machines out there as well. You're going to learn why Brown's gas is better than the just pure hydrogen. But people should be getting at least pure hydrogen. So even the old ionizers were what they called alkaline water was a decent technology for health. So we'll be going really fast. You can ask questions by email. There's an email on my websites. I prefer if people go to the aquacure.life website because it pretty much is just the Brown's gas for health, whereas my eagle-research.com website, where you actually buy the electrolyzers, is it's got like 5,000 pages. It's all my different kinds of research lines and stuff, so it makes it a little harder to find just what's Brown's gas for health. Okay, so these statements that I'm going to be making are pretty much not approved. So we'll just continue on in any case. So the medical disclaimer fine print, if you're, I don't know if you guys can read all the fine print there, but essentially it's just a standard medical disclaimer. Again, anything I say isn't supposed to be used for medical advice. My history, I grew up in a trapper's cabin that was built in the 1800s. We were so far out in the bush we didn't even have radio. There was no electricity, no running water, all that kind of stuff. It was a cattle ranch, 100 head of cattle. We did it traditional, everything with horses and stuff. But I also learned to fix everything myself. And being self-taught, I didn't realize when I went out into the world with my 1966 Ford pickup truck that it wasn't supposed to get 36 miles to the gallon. We never measured any miles per gallon on the ranch. You just went round and round fields and stuff, you know. So in any case, I eventually started selling fuel savers as an inventor and became a self-employed inventor, selling books and stuff. We'll get into more of that. And this is a picture of our outhouse as it still exists today. My youngest brother is looking after the ranch. We do have electricity there now. Okay, so we fixed everything, and there I'm talking about the truck. So, and that I became a self-funded inventor. I have 90 slides. I'm going through these pretty quick. Okay, so this, when I first started researching Brown's gas, I developed this what's called a Hyzor system, and that's a picture of my early models. And what you could do is make Brown's gas on board the vehicle, and it would act like a catalyst to help increase the efficiency of combustion. I sold many thousands of those and wrote a book on telling people how to do it themselves. Then I evolved into the water torch technology. So and interesting, right about this time, I was learning more about Brown's gas. Originally, I wanted Brown's gas in my own shop, having a machine like this, electrolyzer, that would fuel a torch, making enough Brown's gas so I could replace acetylene in a torch. And Yul Brown had gone to China and was developing Brown's gas over there. I got a quote for a machine that was like $300,000, and at the time my total income was about $300 a month, so that was a little out of my budget. And but I'm an inventor, a really good one in alternative energy and research, because once I got off, as I was explaining, once I got off the ranch, I really liked that stuff. So I learned how to build a really good, efficient Brown's gas electrolyzer that ended up being half the weight, half the size, and developed the same amount of gas with half the electricity of the one that I was given the $300,000 quote on. So that was my water torch technology. We sold several hundred of those machines, paid for my research and stuff. And then it turned out that people started experimenting with this, not just in torches, because that's all I wanted Brown's gas in my own shop, just because it was supposedly could weld titanium to plastic, for example, which it can't, by the way. But it did do everything acetylene does and better. It was incredible. I haven't used acetylene in my shop for decades. But people started experimenting, bubbling the Brown's gas in water for plants. And as you can see here, I think it comes out to about 4 times greater growth if you do it in mineralized water, because plants like minerals. But they also really like the Brown's gas. So you can get my business card out there that says the plants don't lie. It'll go to a lot more information on that. And there's also on that page where people were doing fish. So you could actually do not only hydroponics, but aquaponics. And Brown's gas does extremely well in that. But then what happened in about 1996, a customer got a hold of me that they had bubbled water with Brown's gas and then soaked a cotton ball and put it in a plastic cap and re-soaked it several days and put it on a melanoma on his head. And melanoma is a really bad kind of cancer, and in 3 weeks' time, it was gone. And I didn't believe him, I'm sorry to say. But I did tell my customers about this potential application of Brown's gas for health. And that's where this whole thing started to get going and snowball. So my original electrolyzer to bubble the Brown's gas was this little ER50, and it was an assembly of pipes. And this was in about 2007 that I started recommending that people buy this instead of that great big several $1,000 machine. They could just have a tabletop version of the Brown's gas. So this is a very efficient Brown's gas electrolyzer. There are no electrolyzers out there, including my AquaCure out here, that are more efficient than this particular one. But this is the machine that I started getting a lot more testimonials on when people were bubbling the Brown's gas in water. Sold many thousands of those worldwide. And at this point, my customers convinced me to start inhaling the gas, or sorry, not inhaling the gas, drinking the Brown's gas bubbled water. So at this point, and that is in about 2005, it was 2007 before I put this thing out and recommended people start bubbling water. So in that couple of years, I didn't get sick anymore. I used to get sick 3 times a winter with colds and flus and that kind of thing. I didn't get sick. So I had some health benefits from the bubbled water and no negative side effects. So I recommended people start drinking the Brown's gas bubbled water in about 2007. And, and I was learning a lot more by that time as well, because people were giving me a lot more feedback with testimonials and things. So then I started, people started asking me if they could inhale the gas. And I said, no. Oxygen, hydrogen, Brown's gas is a perfect stoichiometric mixture of oxygen and hydrogen. It's the most explosive gaseous mixture on the planet. And I knew this because I'd done a lot of research in combustion. I knew how to do internal combustion better than most of the engineers that I talked to. I knew as far as fuel saving is concerned and that kind of thing. I knew that Brown's gas, or rather hydrogen in air at anything more than 4.7% hydrogen in air is potentially explosive. So, and this has been known for a couple of hundred years in science, so it isn't part of this new woke science kind of a thing. It was actual practical science. So this is the kind of thing that I knew, but I didn't pay attention to one particular fact, is that if you're under 4.7%, it's not explosive. Now, you could inhale pure Brown's gas, like instead of air, pure Brown's gas, and it will be perfectly fine for your body. There's absolutely zero toxic anything about Brown's gas. The only little niggly thing that I try to pay real attention to is this explosive factor. So we want to make sure that, okay. So my wife was really sick at about the time that people were asking me if they could inhale the gas. And so it took a little while to get into the experimentation of the time of it. And when I did, after she passed, when I did get into it, the results were astonishing when I started to inhale the gas myself. And then I recommended it out there, and a lot of people started giving back the results of the Brown's gas, and it was absolutely astonishing, the things that we're having. So if you have really, and this is the ER50 that was set up alongside our bedroom. In fact, we were using that with my new wife. Now I'm going to say, my current wife, I'm going to say that my late wife was a wonderful woman, absolutely great. I don't want to go too much into that because it's my past life, right? And that's gone. I'm now, and she is the reason why I got really passionate about making sure that they're trying to get a Brown's gas machine in every home in the world. But I now have a new reason to do that, and it has to do with my current wife. I met her. She's the love of my life, absolutely wonderful woman, and I wouldn't be standing here today without her. She is... There's a team, when a person can work as a team with her, it's absolutely fantastic. I have a lot of problem with business. I'm excellent with mechanical things, way above average. But when it comes to working with people and stuff, my wife took a look at what was going on in my shop, and she just straightened everything out. Everything works wonderfully and smooth. I had business plans. She looked at those and she said, that's not going to work. And they convinced me that I was going to crash this business worldwide if I went about it the way I was going to do it. So now we're reconfiguring everything so we can have a collaborative business worldwide, working with people instead of competition where everybody's competing all over the place. That's my wife. So anything I mentioned about my previous life, that's my previous life. This is where we are now, and we are proceeding forward to make all of this stuff happen. So can I look and see what's... Okay, so, all right. I did happen to have one testimonial that caused me severe pain at the time. It's because this woman cured her lupus symptoms in 3 weeks' time, and at that particular time, I knew that my late wife had died of lupus, so that's what gave me the passion to make sure that we stop these diseases. Virtually every commercial you see on TV with these big pharma drugs and stuff, if you're doing Brown's gas in your home, you don't need any of those. The reason that we end up being sick is because of a lack of hydrogen, either directly or indirectly these days. So we want to make sure that people get the hydrogen in their homes. Okay, so we're going to now go over some basics of hydrogen for health and detail, or give an idea what is Brown's gas, and then shine some light on some misinformation so that we'll better understand why Brown's gas is better than just straight hydrogen. Okay, so we're mostly oxygen by weight, but hydrogen weighs 1 and there's 2 hydrogen atoms. We're mostly hydrogen by volume. We're actually 62% hydrogen by volume. And 75% of the universe is made of hydrogen, and I think of it as the atom closest to God. But how do we get our hydrogen? Since it isn't free in nature, you can't just inhale it like you do with the oxygen. We get it from our food. What we do is the bacteria in our guts are actually what breaks it off. So we masticate our food, put in a bunch of enzymes, drop it into an acid bath, do some digestion there, go into the small intestine with some bile and microbiome, and continue the bacteria and enzymes and catalysts that are necessary to the point where the bacteria in your colon have then the strength to break the hydrogens off from the carbon in your food, the hydrocarbon food, and the hydrogen goes directly into your bloodstream at that point. So this is where we are good to go. That's where we get our hydrogen from. The problem is that antibiotics, glyphosate, artificial sweeteners, all these kind of things decimate the good bacteria as well as the bad bacteria. And people end up not fully digesting their food and getting the hydrogen that they need. And that causes virtually every ailment known to man. So if we can start getting our hydrogen, we'll, okay, so if there isn't enough hydrogen, yes, okay, so this is the next thing. If you don't have enough hydrogen, your body starts to shut down extraneous systems that aren't immediately life-threatening, like your regeneration system. So if you get a wound, you'll scar instead of it healing. And then your next thing is your immune system shut down if you still don't have enough hydrogen, so you get sick easier. And then if you still don't have enough hydrogen, your organs will start to fail, and then you'll die. So your body knows how to stay alive. It also knows how to heal. So as soon as it gets what it needs to heal, it starts to heal. It may take some time, but it starts to heal. So virtually every ailment that I've discovered, and there's now thousands of experiments, scientific studies out there that show that every time they're using hydrogen to go after a specific thing, three things happen. First thing is it works. The hydrogen helps whatever it is that ailment they're trying to cure. The second thing is there's zero side effects, zero negative side effects. And the third thing is virtually every scientific study that's doing that shows that a whole bunch of other things get healthy in the body as well at the same time as they're looking at one specific thing. So it's mostly we're dehydrated. And so we have killed the bacteria that have actually giving us the hydrogen that we need. So this gives a bit of an idea about those ionizers that, and also they're measuring hydrogen in healing water and tap water and things like that. And they find that the waters that have the most healing are ones that actually have a high hydrogen content as well. So I have a personal opinion that doctors can't cure anything. And I'm not saying anything against doctors. They go out there to do the best they can. And there's a lot of health practitioners out there now that are actually using hydrogen, mostly alternative health practitioners, a lot of chiropractors and stuff like that. But they're using hydrogen to help heal things. But the doctors, the allopathic system out there is made to mitigate symptoms because curing disease is not profitable. And unfortunately, that's the way the allopathic system is set up, is for profit. So funny thing, if you look, you'll find on the internet, when doctors go on strike, patients stop dying. So, it was a little bit ago that the doctors were the third leading cause of death, and I'd say now, because of this latest idiocy, they're actually the leading cause of death in the world. But the nice thing about the Brown's gas is that no doctor's prescription is needed. They haven't yet made water into a drug. So I'm not saying not to listen to your doctor. I'm just saying don't take your doctor's word for it. Whatever it is, do your own research, test, find out what's going on with your own body. There are things that the allopathic doctors do not know, and a lot of them just simply don't have time to learn. They have like a few minutes with each patient. If you guys have been in with a doctor, you see how it is. They put you in a room, he comes in for a few minutes, he's gone. And he's off to another room and another room and another room. They don't have time to do the research independently of what they've been taught. So what we have is a 1-year satisfaction guarantee with our machines. I don't think you're going to find that anywhere else. You use our machine, because some of the things take a while to come, and I want to have as many people get healed as possible. So, and very, very few machines come back, so it's been a really good business model to have this 1-year satisfaction guarantee. We also have a 1-year warranty. A lifetime warranty, excuse me. A mechanical warranty. If anything goes wrong, it's a manufacturer error for your life, you can send the machine back. We'll pay for the shipping, the labor, and the parts, and get you the machine back. That's what we're doing. So as we're saying, hydrogen for health is really good. I'm going through these slides really quickly. I got 90 of them, so it's an hour-and-a-half presentation in a half an hour. I'm sorry. So my personal experience, as I was talking about, I started drinking the bubbled water in 2005 after my customers told me in 1996 that it was a healthful thing to do. I'm a little dense sometimes. I started inhaling in 2016. And at that point, my psoriasis on my elbows, knees, and feet disappeared. It just peeled off like a snake skin peeling off. It was very disconcerting. But underneath was baby smooth skin. My libido increased, and that was nice. And that's been reported for men and women, by the way. So my muscles got hardened and my endurance increased. The arthritis in my hands disappeared. My neuropathies disappeared, like I'd lost feeling in parts of my skin. I had tinnitus. My hand warts disappeared. Plantar's wart was gone. My eyesight improved. My heart murmur disappeared, which was a weak heart valve. My grandfather died of that. All the scars on my body disappeared. My hair, which was white and is coming back and thickening, like it's gray now. After breathing the Brown's gas since March of 2016, I now look the same as I did 20 years ago, if you look at the various photos. So the body needs 3 things to heal. It needs intelligence, and that's God-given, or comes with the package, if you will. You need the proper nutrition, and you need energy. So hydrogen alone isn't enough. Hydrogen is a building block. Hydrogen itself doesn't do anything. You need energy. So if you have a pile of bricks in the woods, you need energy to take those bricks and intelligence to build a brick house. If you just need those 3 things. So most people inhaling the Brown's gas report increased energy, alertness, strength, and balance. I haven't heard of anyone just breathing pure hydrogen that had a loss of warts or anything like that. So and I haven't heard of anybody getting scars healing. So this has to do with stem cells. When you get enough hydrogen, your regeneration system comes back online. And for those people who come to visit me at the table over there, I can show people where I had scars on my body, like on my finger and on my forehead and things like that. And you can see the scars are gone. So instead of just a patch, the body just patching, because I didn't have enough hydrogen, the body actually went back and retroactively healed these places where there were the patches and the scars and stuff. And so instead of getting a $100,000 stem cell treatment, you can do it every day in your own home. So this is a picture of where one of my scars was. And here's in Germany where they had a fellow who had psoriasis and melanoma, skin cancer, on his head. And in 3 weeks' time, it was reduced to almost nothing. Again, what they did is they put a shower cap on him and just put the gas up there in this particular modality, in this particular guy. I didn't get any final pictures. They just sent him home with a machine, and I'm assuming he healed completely. So there is another cancer person who had a stage 4 ovarian cancer. she set the machine at 830 hertz. Now, I'm not a frequency expert. There are frequency experts, and I refer people to them. Our AquaCure has the ability to set a frequency so you can impress upon it. It's one of the additional functionalities I built right into the technology. But an antigen number, anything under 25, or sorry, it's saying 35 here, but I think it's supposed to be 25. You just check on that. Anything under 35 is normal, and her antigen from a stage 4 ovarian cancer was 6 after about 6 months' time. And then there was and she used the AquaCure between 12 and 14 hours a day and says it's a godsend. And I agree. I believe that I was given this technical ability to pass on this ability to create something that can help the world. So this is from Australia. A fellow who's renting AquaCures down there, he said he only had his personal AquaCure available when he got a guy that's begging him to let him use it on his 26-year-old daughter who had terminal breast cancer, given a 1 in a million chance of surviving, had been sent home to die. And in 5 months' time, she bought her own, and in a short time after that, the doctor said it was a miracle. She was 100% cancer-free. So there's a cancer clinic called the Center for New Medicine who was using the Brown's gas, my AquaCures, without my knowledge, to treat cancer, and some of those patients have gotten back in touch with me too, and told me about the efficacy of their service. So you can look them up as well. So the thing is, it's spreading, it's getting out there, but it really needs to be in every home, not just in a clinic, because there's so many health benefits of the Brown's gas. And again, the difference between the Brown's gas is what I call electrically expanded water. You get every benefit that hydrogen gives, plus you get that energy. And I'll explain a little bit more about the electrically expanded water now. So technically, the Brown's gas is the entire mixture of combustible gas generated from a machine specifically designed to electrolyze, which is split, water, and not separate the resulting gases. So it's simply a trifecta of hydrogen, oxygen, and electrically expanded water. And you can go to these links. Anybody who gets on my mailing list and requests, I'll send them a copy of this entire presentation so you can look at all the links and stuff at your leisure. And also, we have a show special. I'll just mention it now. If you buy an AquaCure before the Greater Reset conference ends, the coupon code THEGREATERRESET, all spelled one word, will give a 5% discount plus a free $500 distiller, and a free water torch and a free handle kit. So if you, it's about $800 in savings. Okay, so the Brown's gas contains 6 different constituents. It's got water vapor, hydrogen, diatomic hydrogen, diatomic oxygen, monatomic oxygen, and electrically expanded water. The electrically expanded water is the reason Brown's gas seems to be over unity. Our machines, when they measure the quantity of gas coming out of them, seems to be about 30% over unity, which means 130% gas. So if you go by the Faraday equations, where you're putting a certain amount of amperage through the electrolyzer, you should get a certain amount of gas, split water. But we're getting 30% more than that. And the reason is because of this electrically expanded water, which is forming, it's not part of the Faraday equations. The water isn't split. What has happened is the water has soaked up electrons in such a way that it has become a gaseous form of water that is not water vapor or steam. Technically, it's a negatively charged cold plasma, and that's how we call the fourth state of water, as far as that goes. So knowing what Brown's gas is helps us make better machines. So this is spectrographic of the Brown's gas, and even when it's had the moisture taken out of it, we can still see the water vapor or what is water in the spectrographic analysis. So why is pure hydrogen an obsolete technology? It's still a good technology, but why is it obsolete? because bodies heal themselves given the right nutrition and energy, and electrically expanded water is that negatively charged plasma form of water I was talking about, and the electrons are bioavailable. So they give the body what it needs to heal. Bodies that are sick have usually used up their energy reserves, and their energy generation systems have become compromised. So that's why the Brown's gas is proving to be about a 30% greater healing efficacy over just pure straight hydrogen. So there's a lot of names for Brown's gas. I just gave a quick list there. And this is the first electrolyzer that I experimented with back in 1996, where I actually saw the electrically expanded water forming in the middle of the solution, a gas line coming right out of the middle of the solution, not associated with the gas coming off the anode or cathode, which would be the oxygen or hydrogen generation electrodes. So the gas was coming right out of the solution itself. And here's just pictures of the hydrogen on the cathode, the oxygen on the anode, and right in the middle there is the electrically expanded water. You can see that gas forming right in the middle of the electrolyzer. So there's a major misconception that I want to make clear about there's a lot of electrolyzers out there that are mixing hydrogen and oxygen together and calling it Brown's gas. And it's not Brown's gas because it doesn't have the electrically expanded water. An oxyhydrogen mixture is not Brown's gas. It's oxyhydrogen. And yes, you'll get all the benefits of hydrogen, but you won't get the benefits of the electrically expanded water. So the electrically expanded water is water that has absorbed the electrons until it's like a sponge soaks up water until it's become that negatively charged plasma. And this gives an idea of how it forms with the electron bridge, and any electrolyzer that has a membrane that separates the hydrogen and oxygen to come out of two different streams cannot make Brown's gas because that breaks apart the effect of the electron bridge. Okay, so the electrically expanded water is the main constituent difference that we're talking about. Okay, so there's 4 states of matter, and solid, which would be ice, water, which is liquid, gas, which could be water vapor or steam, and the plasma, which in this case is the electrically expanded water. And I want to do a call out for Professor Gerald Pollack, who invented what is called, or found what is called EZ water. This is extremely important with Brown's gas. Okay, that's called exclusion zone water. Now I call it exclusion zone gel because it's actually H3O2 negative, and it's a gel form, not a water. A lot of people call it structured water because it forms from water as soon as water comes up against a hydrophilic surface. And it turns out that virtually everything in our body is hydrophilic surfaces. We'll get to that in just a second. So the exclusion zone of water isn't water, and the 4th state of matter of water is plasma, which is actually the electrically expanded water. So that clarified. Professor Pollack's book, The 4th Phase of Water, explains about this EZ gel. You just think of it like that. And there's a lot of biological reasons why this is really important. So these 3 medical mysteries are really important to know, because even doctors can't explain these particular 3 things. How is it possible to stuff red blood cells through capillaries that are half their size? Why didn't it just plug it like a cork? Fluids always take the path of least resistance, so how is the blood equal to the tips of my fingers, to the tips of my toes, to the tip of my head, tips of my nose? How is it that you get equal blood flow everywhere throughout your body? And it's also mathematically proven that the heart does not produce enough pressure to push your blood through all of the hundreds of thousands of miles of capillaries in your body. Those are 3 mysteries that haven't been solved till now. So the EZ gel forms on all hydrophilic surfaces, so all of the outsides of the red blood cells and the insides of all the capillaries and arteries and veins have this EZ gel on it. And the EZ gel is not only really slippery, it's negatively charged. So like charges repel, so therefore the red blood cells don't stick to the walls of the capillaries and they can slide right through. But it also, this is really important. Professor Pollack's lab discovered when you have a capillary, a tube that's small enough to be called a capillary, it will spontaneously start to flow a fluid. And this is really important as far as our body is concerned, because that means it isn't our heart that's doing the pumping. Our heart just has to get the blood to the capillaries, and the capillaries pull the blood through all by itself. This effect is what allows trees to pull water up from its roots, and it allows our bodies to work. So the fluid spontaneously starts to flow. And there's two things that increase the EZ gel that I know of. The first is radiant energy. So you go into a spa, you get your radiant treatment and infrared spas and stuff, and it increases your EZ gel. They discovered that. So by adding Brown's gas to water, we actually discovered, okay, just a quick recap. In 2019, I was at a symposium in Bad Soden, Germany, and Professor Pollack was in the front row. And after I did my Brown's gas presentation, he says, how does Brown's gas affect EZ water? And I said, I don't know, let's find out. So I experimented with the University of Washington resources over the pandemic time, and we discovered, so this is one of the first times anybody's knowing this particular thing, if you put hydrogen in water, it doesn't increase the EZ gel, the exclusion zone layer. If you put oxygen in water, it doesn't increase the layer. You put Brown's gas in water, and it increases it at least 3 times and up to thousands of times in our experiments. So this is why Brown's gas is better than the straight hydrogen. Again, it increases the health of your whole system. So this is a screenshot from the actual studies that we were doing where it increased 3 times. Okay. So another reason Brown's gas is therapeutically efficacious is because it increases the oxygen reduction potential without adding anything else. Okay, you're not adding minerals or anything to increase the potential. So it's important to know that electrons are what cause the ORP, or oxygen reduction potential, to be higher. And you can actually drink water that is de-energizing, takes energy from your body, these electrons from your body. If you have ORP that is positive and you drink it, it actually sucks energy from your body to neutralize that water. So you want water that has extra electrons, which is negatively potential as far as the ORP is concerned. So as soon as you bubble the water with Brown's gas, it makes the energy go down. Oh my goodness. I am so not finished with this. Okay, so there's studies I can show on that particular thing. Okay, the electrically expanded water, I'm just gonna have to go through some of these things really fast. I want to say that I'll get this out right now, just in case we run out of time, is that we're making a grassroots affiliate system. So if you get on our mailing list, we'll get you hooked up with that kind of thing. We want as many people who are interested in actually healing people with Brown's gas as possible to be collaborating on this aspect. We prefer if they're using our machines, but it doesn't matter. I don't care whose machine they're using. I want Brown's gas in every home. I want it to be as safe and as possible, but we want it in every home. And because I don't know where it is in the presentation, and I only have a couple minutes left, I'm also going to say that our machines are specifically designed to have additional functionality that other machines don't and won't. And every AquaCure that's ever been sold will be able to run a torch, for example. And the torch can make deuterium-depleted water in your own home. A lot of people are hearing about deuterium-depleted water. But there's also an additional thing that's happening, is it makes new water. Now this is water that's had its memory entirely erased. So you can actually make a food or a fuel or a medicine. You can transmute the water into any element. Any element. And of course we go with it, this is like the Philosopher's Stone, everybody's looking to make gold kind of thing. But they could have a lithium shortage and you could start making, using this technology. So there's a lot of things that Brown's gas can do health-wise, and this is one of the reasons why homeopathic systems work even better with the Brown's gas deuterium-depleted water that you can make with the torch. Our machines also have the ability to change the frequency, which, like you saw with the cancer woman who set it at 830 for her particular ailment. I'm not a frequency expert. I refer you to the frequency experts, but our machine can actually do that. So I'll continue on the thing here just to make sure. We want to make sure that people are working together for the greater good. We want Brown's gas in every home. And there's a lot of reasons why we're thinking our technology is the best out there. I've been building electrolyzers, optimizing them for various use since 1986. I think I'm getting pretty good at it by now. So another thing that people say out there is, oh, it uses lye. So I say is lye safe. And you can Google is lye safe, Eagle Research. You'll come up with a page that'll give you a whole bunch of reasons why that's a lot of misinformation that they're telling about lye. And I say, look at me. I've been inhaling at least 8 hours a day since March of 2016. You can see this obviously not harming anything. So here's the pictures comparing that. So again, we're going with the stem cell production, and we're saying the hydrogen is a superior antioxidant because it's not only selective, but it has zero toxic residue because the byproduct of hydrogen and oxygen is just water. And hydrogen is a perfect free radical deleter. It gets rid of the bad free radicals while it maintains the good ones, like the oxide. My brain just went dead as far as that's concerned. And anyway, there's free radicals that are necessary in the body, and you don't want to get rid of them. So by doing too much, like vitamin C and stuff, you can actually do a little more harm than good. So the electrically expanded water is electron rich, and it has that energy we're talking about. These are various pictures of myself. Again, you can look, and then there's the pH myth, which I was talking about with the alkaline water, and how it was actually the, and this is a picture of our early version of the, yes, and this is a very important story. My wife looked at these, my original pipe version that you saw, and she said, no woman is going to want that in her house. You want one of these in every house, you got to make one that a woman is going to want or allow in the house. So this was one of my early versions of the AquaCure, and over time it has evolved. And I give a bunch of reasons why a person would want, or items to check. Like if you're looking for a Brown's gas machine, there's certain things that you should check off, like or consider. So when you get the various machines, you'll want to do that. So I already discussed some of the things that are next. Unfortunately, okay, so we're bubbling in water for useful attachments. And we're making a nanobubble system that'll hook into the AquaCure so that you can fully infuse water with little bubbles, a lot more than before. And the deuterium depleted water, okay, making new water. And we're looking for people to sign in for our affiliate program, and we're wanting people like you that are more interested in in helping the planet, in helping people, than making money. There's a lot of people out there that are in it for the money, and yes, it gets the job done, but really, we need a better philosophy in this world. We need to be helping people. So we're good? Okay.
He got to 104. You said there were 90. Hey, who thinks George should do a workshop? Give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We'll upload the slides too. I've got one of his Brown's gas machines sitting in my kitchen. I bartered for an above phone, and it makes like the water, the bubbled water. I don't know how to describe it, but it's thick. You know, it's heavy, and it's great. Yeah, easy water. All right, so we are about to break for lunch. For those of you that know, there's going to be workshops in the green space, and we're going to see you after, so enjoy.